Hello and welcome to the CPA Consultants Alliance video series on important issues currently facing the accounting profession. Our panel in this segment will be addressing technology trends for accounting firms. My name is Terry Putney. I'm the CEO of Transition Advisors and a member of the CPA Consultants Alliance. I'll be the moderator for this session. Our panel members are Roman Kepczyk, who's the Director of Consulting for Centric, Sarah Dobek, founder and president of Inovautus Consulting, and Dustin Hostetler, Chief Innovation Officer of Boomer Consulting. The CPA Consultants Alliance members are leading national professionals that provide practice management consulting to the accounting profession. Our mission is to explore the leading issues facing the profession. We strive to develop and share solutions that benefit practitioners. Our members are committed to making a difference in the communities we serve. So now let's get started. Dustin, technology is evolving at a dizzying pace and impacting every aspect of accounting firm production. What is the best way for a CPA firm owner to keep up with all these changes?
I'm going to split my answer into two here. First, if we're talking a small firm, I would say the partner or partners within that firm are probably taking a more hands-on role or a more detailed role of technology, as they may be outsourced for some of the day-to-day or have a lower level in-house IT person that works for them. So it's really important that those partners keep pace with understanding the changes and trends in the profession, the technology that's coming into market. They have to take on more of a hands-on role. But where I'll spend more of my time is the mid-size and larger CPA firm. And this is, once you're starting to get to that mid-size level of a firm, you have not only, a higher level IT individual leading the charge, whether it's a director or even a CIO level. You're starting to build an IT team or multiple teams within the organization. And in that case, every partner is not, doesn't need to be leading the charge in terms of understanding all of the trends regarding new technology. But I do think it's important that we do have, a handful of individuals within the firm at a partner level who play a nice complementary role with the CIO or director of IT. And those individuals would be the leaders of your service lines, the tax service line leader, the audit service line leader, the accounting services leader, so on and so forth. And it is really important that those individuals, as part of their leadership of those segments, understand that part of that role entails knowing and anticipating where technology is heading and how it's going to impact how they get work done into the future. So they have to have a good relationship and work hand in hand with that CIO or that director of IT to bring both the practical angle or aspect of technology along with the leadership of the CIO in order to benefit their segment. And in terms of skill set and mindset, these individuals, those partners who you put in charge of those different service lines, they cannot have a change adverse personality. They have to be open and willing to embrace change. They cannot be happy or content with the status quo, and they need to be attending association events, networking, industry conferences, etc., to meet with their peers in other firms, to hear what other firms are doing, to see and talk to those new software vendors that you see popping up at every conference that you go to. They have to stay on the leading edge there, in my opinion.
Roman, anything you want to add to those comments?
Absolutely agree with Dustin there. When I was the director of Henry & Horn's IT division, where I learned the most, honestly, was networking with firms and other IT directors. So we were part of a large association that eventually became Leading Edge. And a couple times a year, I would meet with other IT directors and talk firsthand on specific things we were trying out, implementing, what was working, what were the bottlenecks out there. For the firms that are not part of an association, there are a couple conferences like the AICPA Engage, which includes the Tech Practitioner Symposium, as well as the CPA FMA IT Technology Fly-In. where you can meet with those groups. Also, I think networking with the user groups, or with people in the user groups. What I've found that, people that are like directors of tax, and let's say they're using CCH or Thomson, going to their user groups and sitting in on the classes that refer specifically to the things they're trying to implement. For instance, like scanning sessions. You hear people talk about what procedures they put in place, what actual tools worked, what the settings were for the scanners. You can build peer contacts to actually follow up with them afterwards in case you're having trouble implementing something. And then finally, I estimate I spend between a fourth and a third of my time reading magazines like CPA Practice Advisor, Accounting Today. These highlight kind of the information that's out there, what's going on. And then I look at the surveys, like the IT surveys, paperless benchmarking surveys, to see what are the things that are actually trending from 2 years ago to today. And if there's something, for instance, like workflow where 62% of the firms have implemented it, mine has not, then it kind of points to something that I can justify to my other partners to say, this is something we should be looking at that's making a difference in other firms.
It seems like new products are being pushed out constantly by vendors, with many proving to be bleeding edge instead of working well. Roman, what do you see as the top stable technologies firms should be utilizing today to improve tax production?
Well, I know there's a lot of discussion about paperless tax flow, workflow, and all those things, but what it really comes down to, I think, is having an integrated workflow tool. For instance, when we go in and consult with firms, we find that there are some long time processes, for instance, for tracking the ingress of documents, the receipt of documents in the firm. There's a way to look at due dates. Sometimes that's in practice management or a separate tracker program. There's status checks, for instance, in preparation and review extension. But these all seem to be in different applications. We need a way to have everything centralized in one place so anybody who's authorized within the firm to see that information has easy access. And what we see is the workflow tools are the solution. Now, in smaller firms, that may be practice management projects, which are modules that have to be added onto practice, but it allows them to track all those steps pretty cohesively. The problem with those products is as you get much larger, the sheer volume of tax returns in the bigger firms, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 returns, makes them somewhat kludgy. And so we see firms implement dedicated workflow solutions. Probably the three most prevalent tools out there would be Expatax Solutions XCM, it would be CCH Workstream, and Thomson Reuters FirmFlow, which is on top of their Go File Room suite. We also see within the document management programs, plugins such as Docket and iChannel have workflow compatibility inside of that, and even Office Tools Professional has some workflow tools in there. And so that's where we'd start looking for on the workflow. Now, in addition to managing the status of every return process and those kind of things, we also want to make sure they're handling the ingress, and that means teaching your clients how to effectively use your portal or your secure email solution that's out there, as well as your accountants to import those data files and make it so it capture data at its root source consistently within the firm.
Dustin, anything you can add to that?
I completely agree with Roman regarding a workflow solution. I'll even go as far as calling it a no-brainer in tomorrow's CPA firm. You can't properly manage a tax practice without having that integrated workflow solution to move and automate the movement of the tax work through the office. We've been talking paperless tax processes for 10 to 15 years now. I would say within the last couple of years, I'm finally seeing that we're truly going paperless, even though we've been saying we're paperless for 10 or 15 years. Where from the beginning of the engagement letter, getting that out and back, signed from the client, there are plenty of e-signature programs out there that are automating that process. We're getting work in electronically from clients. We are, auto-populating tax software. That technology has grown leaps and bounds in the last few years. And as Roman mentioned, at the end of the process, the delivery, whether through a secure portal or secure email channel, the entire, different technologies at different parts of the process, but we are finally there where we can truly have that paperless tax process from engagement acceptance all the way through delivery and e-filing of the return, which ultimately not only benefits us, but gives our clients a much more client-friendly experience as well.
Great. Dustin, what trends are you seeing with accounting and auditing?
Automation is the big word here. More and more we are seeing, along with tax, what I just mentioned on the tax side, the A&A side of firms is becoming more and more automated. There was an article published in The Economist a couple of years back that discussed a survey or a research study that was done about different industries and the probability that those industries are going to, are basically going to automate people out of their jobs. And accounting and auditing was one of the top professions listed on this survey, 94% ability within the next 2 decades that automation is going to reduce the staffing that we need to perform the work. So I don't know if it's, if we're really 20 years out or not, or it might even be sooner than that, but the audit practice of the future is going to look different from today. You're seeing some of the artificial intelligence software coming into the marketplace now. Validus is getting close. Some of the big four have their own homegrown solutions that are using AI to automate more of the work papers and the work that you traditionally do during field work. So I see that getting more and more prevalent, which is going to change the mindset of the audit practice from compliance to consultative. As automation and efficiency get driven into the audit practice, as technology continues to improve, there's going to be downward pressure on fees, even more so than today. And so it's going to be really important that firms understand we have to maximize the audit while retraining our people to develop more of that consultative mindset and skill set for their clients to truly be that trusted advisor that as CPAs we preach to our clients.
Roman, what can you add to that?
Well, I think from a technology perspective, we see that there's a few trends that firms should be adopting that are stable today. One would be the centralization of their data so that it's run on servers, and rather than checking out binders and working on in the field, all the work is done on the servers. This allows not only the field auditor to get access to it, but maybe a manager that's at a different location or a partner in the office to be able to look at those work papers and respond right there. The other benefit of having everything centralized on the servers and everyone connecting individually remotely is that from a security perspective, there's no more data residing on the local workstation. So if a laptop happens to be lost or stolen, the security breach risks are significantly reduced. I've had heard stories of a couple of firms that have had laptops stolen with not only the current binder, but maybe like 10 or 12 other ERISA audits checked out onto that binder that had census information. And unfortunately, the laptop wasn't encrypted. And so that firm, exposed a lot of client data. The other thing we want firms to take a look at is we're seeing a trend towards going to a single audit suite for not only the engagement binder, but also to the work paper programs, which would be, for instance, CCH engagement with Knowledge Coach, or PPC's Smart Practice Aids with Engagement CS, or Thompson's Firm Flow, which is part of the Go File Room suite. And then finally, we're seeing kind of just the Uberization of the entire audit practice. And what I mean by that is, can we put all of our information in one place where everything, we're talking about a place where we send the client the PPC list, where they have all their documents uploaded into the system from there, where the auditor prepares the trial balance, where they check off the work paper program, put in their notes, and then even deliver the financial statement to the client all through that one product. And so in addition to both CCH and Thompson building towards that suite, there are third-party companies such as Audit File who have done that, even though with the Wiley guidance. But we just see them basically putting everything in one bucket to eliminate the lack of integration between products.
I predict the 2017 Webster Word of the Year will be Uberization. Sarah, beyond the departmental production processes, can you share with us what technology trends you're seeing firms utilize to build and promote their practices and track progress?
Yeah, so just like on the audit and the tax side, technology is really changing quite a bit to assist with practice growth and development. One of the challenges that many firms have had over the years, and marketing business development professionals in particular, is that all of the software that you use on the tax and audit side tends not to talk to each other. That's gotten much better over the years. A lot of the information that's necessary for some of this resides in some of these disparate programs, and there hasn't always been a way to get that. And, most software providers now are providing at least a one-way API where it can export some information and at least go one way to a central system. And so what we're seeing firms do now is really focus on integration of those softwares so that they're being provided to the marketing and business development professionals that are charged with growing the firm. So it's getting into CRM systems. They're building special integrations that allow all of that information to come together so that they've got better information to grow their firms. The other thing that's happening is in the suite of marketing software services itself, there's a lot more integration. So your CRM can talk to your email automation software. It can talk to your webinar software. There's not a lot of having to duplicate or manual entry of tracking of where you're having interactions with people. And so that's providing a lot more data and a lot better data, and it's actually helping to streamline the work process and the workflow for marketing, making it much easier to get to some of that information. The other impact that we're seeing of the combined technology itself is that it's actually helping to enhance the client experience. This is a huge trend for a lot of CPA firms right now. Trends maybe not the right word, but it's a focus of a lot of these firms to really look at what is the client experience. Because of this move towards an anticipation of a move towards much more consultative practice, client experience has really risen to the top in this move away from compliance-only services. And so a lot of firms are starting to focus on how do we do that better, and technology is going to be a huge aid in being able to figure out some of those touch points, everything from notifying your clients of where something is in process to how they use the portal to how your staff engages with it. You know, a lot of what we've talked about has been the internal side of where CPA firms sit on this, but there's this whole other component of what is the client experience with your firm as you use these technologies, because it really opens up a wide opportunity to do some of the things that I think many CPA firms have been wanting and trying to get to on that client experience side that, you know, technology will help facilitate, I believe, a lot of that.
Roman?
Back to you, Terry.
Yep. Roman, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Sarah, like in the overview. What I see in firms from a technology perspective is one of the places that we see a big disconnect is just the simple concept of where do I go to get a client's contact information? And what we're amazed to see when we interview, when we do a lean tax or lean audit process, where do you go to look up that information? We hear everything from our tax program to our practice management program to a standalone Salesforce to Outlook, and everyone has a different place they update it. And so when we look at contact management from a consulting perspective, we try to use all the integration that's possible, which today, most of the firms, if they have the same practice management and program, they can link those so that one change flows all the way through to both of those. We can also, as Sarah pointed out, export that data to Outlook. So again, we have one update made that flows through all the critical locations it needs to be. And so you want all your people to consistently know when they have a question to go to one place. And in most of my firms, that ends up being the practice management tool, with firms setting up custom fields beyond the traditional ones that are set up initially, and then assigning a series for the 9,000s to handle prospects, the 8,000s to handle referral sources, those kind of things. We also encourage them to have a standard format, and that means, when you put an address in, is it upper and lowercase? Is it include punctuation? Does it use abbreviations? because anytime you have a difference between one place and another, it kicks out as an outlier.
Remote access technology has been getting a lot of press lately. In addition to being utilized for remote auditing and finishing tax returns from home, it's being seen as a retention strategy as more firms embrace completely virtual workers. Sarah, what best practices should firms be considering to make anytime, anywhere work successful in their firm?
Yeah, that's a great question, Terry. I'm going to focus on the side that we might not think about. A lot of times when we think about anytime, anywhere work, we think about the technology, the video feeds and the instant messaging and the technology itself. Assuming that we've got the right technology selected, the best practices that really enabled us to work in an organization are a couple things. The first is mindset. When we work with firms and talk to them about really starting to look at working, whether it's just audit in the field or whether it's actually virtual workers in a totally different location than where you are physically and geographically located, the number one thing is you've got to figure out how to manage differently. A lot of firms are very traditional in how they manage. They look at managing on site and in person with somebody, and the concept of possibly managing somebody virtual is just very foreign to them. So if you want this to work in your firm and you want to start exploring it, the first thing to do is change your mindset in that you can manage, you can develop people, and you can do it in a virtual environment. A lot of the same things that you would do in person, you can very much do online and on screen and through video or through phone. So that's really the first thing. And then the second thing comes down to setting the right expectations and processes. You also have to find the right person. So you've got to have the right structure and framework in place. And I'm not talking about the technology. I'm talking about the process for communication and how you kind of set this up. What are the expectations for the employees? Are there core working hours that they need to be there? What does response time look like for emails or back to clients? And, we kind of get away from having to be as articulate about that inside of a firm because we can go just grab somebody. But in a virtual environment, a remote work, that isn't always the case. And so it forces us to really define what that is for our firms and to communicate that effectively. And so it's, the firms that are doing this, these are the things that they are embracing and these are the things that they are doing to make it successful, to use that remote work.
Excellent comments. Dustin, anything that you can add to that?
Yeah, I'll just share a quick story here. At Boomer Consulting, we're a completely virtual company, and we were on site at a client just the last couple of days, and so this is really at the top of my mind right now. And my colleague, who's been with us a little over a year, made the comment at dinner with our client one night. They were asking about to Sarah's point, how do you manage a remote workforce? How do you make that work? And doesn't that impact the team camaraderie and your relationships with your team members? And his response was, I worked in public accounting for over 15 years, and then in industry for a few years, and I've never felt more connected to my team than I have in the last year. And so it can be done. And I think Sarah nails it with it. It starts with mindset. You have to have the mindset from leadership at the top, leading by example, but throughout the organization, that this is, this can be done. And then, some of the technology tools are really important as well. Whether it's Skype for Business, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting, whatever it is, if we're talking tax work, audit work, the ability to see each other, to share screens, to collaborate during the process. It's being on site, being physically located next to someone. Those lines aren't there like they used to be. Where we had to be next to someone to get, or we can do work virtually with not only the cloud applications that we have, but also those technologies like Skype and Google and GoToMeeting to really see each other and share screens.
Panelists, before we wrap up, I'd like to get some quick thoughts from you on specific technical trends impacting firms. Let me give you a key phrase. Roman, cloud adoption.
Cloud adoption. Well, it's here. The reality is the vendors such as CCH and Thompson have figured out it is much easier to update, support, and provide support on cloud applications than it is to try to support them within your offices. We're also seeing that firms have not necessarily invested in their IT staff as much to be able to update and maintain systems and keep them current. And so strong trend, for instance, like when firms Exchange Server comes to the end of life, they're mostly finding out it's a lot less expensive, it's a lot more stable, it provides a lot more security to have Microsoft do it than to build it themselves. And so we're seeing more and more firms, when they do the analysis, even complete architectures, everything, that it's cheaper to go to a cloud provider than it is to maintain it for yourself. Within Eccentric, I'm on the consulting side, but we have on the cloud side over 200 firms, over 5,000 users, and they connect every day from around the country. That would make them, if it was one firm, it'd be like the 7th largest firm in the US, and they're all working in the cloud.
Wow. Sarah, integration.
All right, well, if it wasn't clear from some of our sessions today, integration is just a huge part of where the technology trend is going. I think we can expect that from our service providers, and I think quite honestly, CPA firms need to be demanding that from their software providers. There shouldn't be some of the challenges that still exist with technology talking to each other, and it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg for firms to build some of the APIs that they need to for the technology to speak to each other. But I think that's something that we're going to see change at even a faster pace than it has over the last few years, because it's quite honestly, it's necessary to operate today. It's not a want. I think it's a must-have.
Dustin, lean.
Lean has become the standard process improvement methodology in CPA firms today. Not just what we do. I've personally worked with over a third of the top 100 firms in the last few years. I know Roman and his team. That's their process improvement standard as well, and he does a lot of work inside CPA firms, and there's other vendors as well. But it is becoming the gold standard for how you look at this improvement within CPA firms today. It's not a fad; it's here to stay. And I know I'm biased here, but it really is the foundation for what a lot of us in the profession have been talking about in the last couple of years of transforming our practices from compliance to consultative. Lean gives you the foundation of solid processes, incorporating technology, best practices, and automation to make the compliance work we do crisp and effective, so we can free up time from that basic level of service to provide that value add, more of that consultative guidance to our clients, where the true margins and opportunities are and will be in the future.
And Roman, IT staff.
IT staffing. That's actually an interesting one, because what we're seeing is firms have not invested much in specialized training such as security, network implementation of these people. And many of them have been in the firm for a very long time, and so they're at the high end of the compensation pyramid there. And they're not capable of doing some of the remote access and things that are out there, especially as, for the last 5 years, we've been recommending firms outsource all one-shot implementations. So our advice for IT people within the firm is to take a more active role in project management and implementation of the things that Dustin was talking about on the lean perspective, or we were talking about in the workflow perspective, helping with that side. As I said, it's almost impossible for anybody to secure their own network today. And so going to third-party providers and cloud providers that can do it makes a significant difference and secures the firm. Matter of fact, we're seeing in most of our cloud clients that they're reducing their IT staffing at least by half, and many of them by to 2/3 compared to what they had when they had their own networks in-house.
Thank you, panelists. We encourage you to provide us feedback and submit any questions you have by visiting our website, www.thecpaconsultantsalliance.com. When you register on our website, you'll be able to access materials that have been left by our panelists regarding this presentation and download those materials. Registering also allows you to receive our quarterly newsletters and blogs, and to download white papers we've produced. You can follow us on Twitter at the CPACA. In 2016, we published a book called Bridging the Gap, Strengthening the Connection Between Current and Emerging Leaders in the CPA Profession. and it can be purchased on Amazon. Thank you for attending this segment of the CPA Consultant Alliance video series.